My son thought locking me in the bathroom for 4 days would keep me quiet while he threw a lavish party in the villa I paid for. He made a fatal calculation. I did not scream for help. I sat on the cold tiles, surviving on tap water and pure rage, plotting to sell the roof over his head before the week was over. Revenge is not loud. It is a signature on a deed of sale. My name is Martha Langford, and I am 54 years old. In the quiet, foggy town of Silverbridge, people think they know everything about their neighbours. They see the sprawling villa on the hill and assume I live like a queen, enjoying the fruits of a wealthy husband's labour. They do not see the calluses on my hands from 30 years of scrubbing floors and working double shifts at the diner to pay for every brick of that house. I built it. I built it for us, for my husband, God rest his soul, and for our son, Henry. But now, walking through the marble hallways I paid for, I felt less like the owner and more like a ghost haunting my own life. Since Henry married Jessica, the temperature in the house had dropped 10 degrees. "You deserve a rest, Mom," Henry had said when he suggested managing the property deeds to help with tax benefits. "Let me handle the stress." I trusted him. He was my boy. But the boy who used to bring me dandelions was gone, replaced by a man who looked at me with calculation rather than love. Last Saturday, the driveway filled with luxury sedans. Henry was throwing a gala. I stood by the window of the small guest room they had moved me into, watching champagne flutes clink under the garden lights. I had not received an invitation to a party in my own home. The humiliation burned in my chest, hot and suffocating. I went downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of water, trying to be invisible. Jessica was there, adjusting her diamond earrings bought with money I suspected came from my dwindling savings. "Oh," she said, looking at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. "I thought you were asleep. Henry said you weren't up for company." "It is my living room. Jessica," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. She laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that echoed off the granite countertops. "Technically, Martha, it is the entertaining space, and honestly, you would just embarrass yourself. You do not exactly fit the aesthetic anymore. Do you?" That was the moment the glass wall between us shattered, leaving only jagged edges. I retreated, but I began to watch. In the days that followed, the house filled with whispers. Henry and Jessica stopped eating dinner with me. I saw briefcases left on tables, legal documents that were swept into drawers the moment I entered a room. The air grew thick with secrets. I felt a prickle on the back of my neck, the same instinct that warned me when a customer was going to walk out on a bill. But this was far more dangerous. It came to a head on a Tuesday night. The house was silent, or so they thought. I was walking past the study when I heard Henry's voice, low and urgent. "I can't just do it. Jess, she is my mother. She is an obstacle." "Henry." Jessica's hiss cut through the oak door. "We owe Marcus too much money. If we do not get full title to this place by the end of the month, we are dead. Do you understand, dead?" "I need more time," Henry pleaded, his voice cracking. "We don't have time," she snapped. "We need a solution, a permanent one, or at least long enough to get the signature forged and filed without her interference." My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I backed away, the floorboards creaking under my feet. The study door handle began to turn. I retreated to the shadows of the hallway, terror cold in my veins. The next morning, the sun rose over Silverbridge, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. The milkman came and went. The mail carrier dropped off the bills, but no one saw Martha Langford. I did not go to the bakery as I did every Wednesday. I did not water the hydrangeas. The villa stood grand and silent, swallowing its secrets whole. To the outside world, I had simply vanished into thin air. Mom, it is just better this way. Just for a while. So you do not embarrass us. Those were the last words Henry spoke to me before the lock clicked. It was not a casual click. It was the heavy, metallic thud of a high-security deadbolt, one I had paid to install 2 years ago for safety. Now, it was my cage. I pounded on the mahogany door until my knuckles bled. Henry, open this door, Henry. Silence was my only answer. The bathroom was large, windowless, and lined with cold black marble. Without the lights on, it was a tomb. I fumbled for the switch, but nothing happened. He had cut the power to this room. I sank to the floor, the cold seeping into my bones. Panic began to claw at my throat. It was tight, suffocating, like a hand squeezing my windpipe. That night, the music started. It was a deep, rhythmic thumping that shook the floorboards. I sat in the dark, shivering, while my son and his wife entertained guests in the villa I had built with sweat and tears. I imagined them drinking the vintage Cabernet from the cellar, laughing, telling people that Martha was on vacation or perhaps unwell. The indignity was worse than the fear. Sometime later, the music died down. Steps approached the door. I scrambled to the threshold, pressing my ear against the cold wood. Did you get the notary to agree? Jessica's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. He is hesitant, Henry whispered. He knows the title is in her name. If we do not get her signature, the transfer won't hold up. Make her sign it, she hissed. Starve her out if you have to. We need that loan. Henry, the sharks are circling. My breath hitched. They were not just keeping me out of the way. They were trying to steal the villa. They were going to force me to sign over the deed to cover their debts. The panic that had paralyzed me suddenly evaporated, replaced by something far more useful. A cold, hard rage settled in my chest. It was solid as a rock. I stopped banging on the door. I stopped crying. I crawled to the sink and drank water from the tap, forcing myself to swallow. I needed to survive. I needed to remember. One day bled into 2, then 3, then 4. Hunger became a dull ache, then a sharp pain, and finally a strange numbness. I drifted in and out of consciousness. I hallucinated the smell of roast chicken. I spoke to my dead husband in the dark. Look at what our son has become. I whispered to the shadows. Look at what he is doing to me. On the 4th day, a violent argument erupted right outside the door. It pulled me back from the edge of the abyss. What is this? Jessica screamed. Henry, look at this. I don't know. Henry's voice was high, pitched with terror. It was just in the mailbox. It says final notice. She shrieked. They are going to seize the accounts you said you had. More time. I thought I did. I need to call Marcus. Maybe he can wait. Marcus will kill you. Footsteps stomped away, heavy and frantic. Henry was running. Jessica was screaming. Then, silence returned. I slumped against the bathtub, my energy gone. I closed my eyes, accepting that I might die in this marble box. Then, the doorknob turned. I flinched, expecting Henry's angry face, expecting a demand for a signature. The door creaked open, flooding the room with blinding hallway light. I squinted, raising a trembling hand to shield my eyes. It was not Henry. It was not Jessica. A silhouette stood there, framed by the light. "Martha!" a voice whispered, filled with horror. Oh my God. Martha. The figure in the doorway was Olivia Hart. She was our neighbour from across the lane, a woman who spent more time pruning her roses and watching the street than she did inside her own home. Her eyes were wide, scanning my dishevelled appearance, the dark circles under my eyes, and the filth on my clothes. "Martha!" she gasped, dropping the casserole dish she was holding. It shattered on the floor, but neither of us looked at it. "I saw the lights were off in your room for days. I thought, oh God, look at you." I tried to step forward, but my legs were like water. I collapsed, not onto the hard marble, but into Olivia's surprisingly strong grip. She dragged me out of that house, away from the smell of my own fear. An hour later, I was sitting on Olivia's floral sofa, wrapped in a wool blanket. A cup of hot tea sat steaming in my hands. The warmth felt alien against my skin. "He locked you in," Olivia said. It was not a question. She was pacing her small living room, her face flushed with anger. "I saw Jessica leave in a hurry an hour ago. Then Henry. They looked like they were running from a fire. I came over to check on you because, well, I had a feeling. They needed me out of the way," I said, my voice raspy from dehydration. "They are trying to sell the villa, or refinance it. I heard them talking about massive debts." I told her almost everything. I told her about the party I listened to from the bathroom floor. I told her about the lack of food. I told her about the cold. But I held one thing back. I did not tell her about the small, battery-operated voice recorder I had taped under the marble sink vanity 2 days before they locked me in. I had bought it after I first suspected Henry was stealing from my pension. It was still there, recording every word they had said in that bathroom while they thought I was unconscious or asleep. That was my insurance. That was my weapon. Olivia sat down beside me, taking my cold hand in hers. "We are calling the police." "Martha? Right now? This is kidnapping. This is abuse." "No," I said. The word came out harder than I intended. "Martha, look at you. You need a doctor and a lawyer and a police officer, in that order. If I call the police, Henry goes to jail," I replied, staring into the dark liquid of my tea. "He loses everything. Yes. But he becomes a victim in his own mind. He will blame me. He will say I was senile, that I locked myself in. It becomes a mess." "He is a monster," Olivia whispered. "He is his father's son," I said, a bitter taste rising in my throat. Memory washed over me, cold and sharp. I remembered my late husband standing in the kitchen 15 years ago, telling me he had gambled away our savings on a sure thing investment. He had looked at me with the same dead, shark-like eyes Henry had now. No remorse. Just calculation. Just annoyance that I was upset about the money I had earned scrubbing floors. Henry had learned well. He treated me not as a mother, but as a depreciating asset that needed to be liquidated. "I am not calling the police. Olivia," I said firmly. "I am going to hit him where it actually hurts. I am going to take away the only thing he loves." "The money?" Olivia asked. "The status," I corrected. "The villa. The reputation? He thinks he owns that house. He thinks he owns me. I stood up. My legs were still shaky, but my resolve was iron. I walked to Olivia's window and pulled back the curtain. Across the street, my villa stood tall and imposing against the night sky. It looked beautiful. It looked like a fortress. But looking at it now, I did not feel the pride of ownership. I felt the cold calculation of a demolition expert surveying a building. I was not going to live there again. I was going to dismantle it, brick by financial brick, until Henry was left standing in the rubble. "Can I stay here for a few days?" I asked, not taking my eyes off the house. "I need to make some calls, and I need—" Absolute silence. Henry must think I am gone, or dead. Olivia stood beside me, following my gaze. "You can stay as long as you need." I watched the dark windows of the villa. My son was out there somewhere, panicked, drowning in debt, terrified of a man named Marcus. He thought the worst thing that could happen was losing his money. He was wrong. The worst thing was a mother who had stopped forgiving. "Thank you," I said. "Tomorrow, I need to find a lawyer, not the family lawyer. I need someone vicious." I sat in the office of Dale Kerwin, a man whose suit was 2 sizes too big and whose reputation was 3 times scarier than his appearance. He was not the kind of lawyer you hired to draft a will. He was the kind you hired when you wanted to bury someone legally. The office smelled of stale tobacco and old dust. I placed the stack of bank statements I had salvaged from my online backups onto his desk. "You said you paid for everything," Dale said, looking over his spectacles. "But the deed is in Henry's name." "I paid the down payment of $150,000, I replied, my voice steady. "I paid the monthly mortgage for 20 years. Henry only took over the title 3 years ago because he said it would help with his credit score for his business. I have the transfer documents where he signed an agreement to care for me in exchange. He breached that contract the moment he locked me in a bathroom." Dale tapped his pen on the desk. "It is called a constructive trust, Mrs. Langford. Even if his name is on the paper, the equity is yours if we can prove the intent. But we have a bigger problem." He slid a file across the desk. It contained a search of public records on the property. "There is a second lien on the house," Dale said. "Recorded 2 weeks ago. Private lender. A man named Marcus Hale." The name sent a chill down my spine. Even in a quiet town like Silverbridge, people knew the name Marcus Hale. He was not a banker. He was a shark who lent money to desperate people at illegal interest rates. "How much?" I asked. $200,000, Dale answered. "Due in full in 30 days. If Henry does not pay, Hale takes the house, and Hale does not file foreclosure lawsuits. He sends men with baseball bats." I closed my eyes. Henry had not just stolen my house. He had sold it to the devil. "I have more," Dale continued, pulling out a sheet of photocopied signatures. "I cross-referenced the loan documents. This signature here, the co-signer, that is supposed to be you." I looked at the scrawl. It was a clumsy imitation of my handwriting. "I never signed that." "I know," Dale said grimly. "It is forgery, serious fraud. We have enough to send him to prison for 10 years. But if we send him to prison, the bank and Marcus Hale still fight over the house. We need to be smarter." I left Dale's office with a plan forming in my mind, but I needed one last piece of the puzzle. Back at Olivia's house, I took the small voice recorder out of my toiletry bag. Olivia had bravely snuck back into the villa earlier that morning to retrieve my heart medication and personal items while Henry was out. She had found the recorder exactly where I left it, taped beneath the marble vanity. I sat at Olivia's kitchen table and pressed play. The audio was grainy, filled with the echo of the bathroom tiles, but the voices were unmistakable. It was recorded on the 3rd day of my imprisonment. "He's going to find out. Jess." Henry's voice whined on the tape. "Marcus is going to find out I used the loan to pay off your gambling debts, not for the business investment." "Shut up, Henry!" Jessica's voice cut in, sharp and dismissive. "We just need to sell the place. Once the old hag signs, we cash out. We pay Marcus his cut, and we take the rest." Then there was a sound of a door closing, followed by a rustling noise, as if Jessica was alone in the room, perhaps fixing her makeup in the mirror. She made a phone call. Her voice changed completely. It was no longer the shrewish wife. It was low and seductive. "Hey, baby," Jessica said to the person on the other end. "Yeah, he is cracking. He is a mess. I booked the flight to Rio for next Tuesday. No. He does not know. I am taking the cash from the safe. All of it. Let Marcus Hale deal with Henry. By the time they find the body, we will be on the beach." The tape clicked off. I sat in silence. Olivia stared at me, her hand covering her mouth in shock. "She is leaving him," Olivia whispered. "She is going to steal the money he borrowed from a loan shark and leave him to die." Henry was a fool. He was a thief and a terrible son, but he was being played. Jessica was the architect of this ruin. She was going to flee with the $200,000, leaving Henry to face the wrath of Marcus Hale alone. He would lose the villa, his freedom, and likely his life. I stood up. The trembling in my hands had stopped. "She wants to leave next Tuesday," I said, checking the calendar on the wall. "That gives me 3 days." "3 days to do what?" Olivia asked. "To save the house," I said, picking up my phone to call Dale. "And to make sure that when the house of cards falls, my son is the one standing in the wreckage, not buried under it. I am going to sue him. Today." "You are suing your son to save him." "I am suing him to freeze the assets," I replied. "If I file a claim on the title, nobody can sell that house, not Henry, not Marcus Hale, and certainly not Jessica." I looked out the window at the villa. The lights were on. They were likely packing bags right now. They had no idea that the ghost they thought they had broken was about to walk right through the front door with a sledgehammer. "Get the car. Olivia," I said. "We are going to the courthouse." The legal papers were filed at exactly 9 in the morning. Dale Kerwin moved with the silent efficiency of an assassin, lodging a civil complaint for false imprisonment and conversion of assets. By noon, the sheriff was looking for Henry to serve him a restraining order. But I had unfinished business to attend to first. The town of Silverbridge was already buzzing. The rumour mill, fueled by Olivia's network at the grocery store, had churned out a juicy piece of gossip. Jessica was gone. She had been seen hailing a taxi at dawn, dragging 2 heavy suitcases that likely contained the cash from the safe and whatever jewellery she could fence. My son was not just broke, he was abandoned. And to make matters worse, a black sedan with tinted windows had been idling at the end of our street for 2 days. Marcus Hale was losing patience. I arrived at the villa at 2 in the afternoon. The gate was open, swinging lazily in the wind. The lawn, usually manicured to perfection, was littered with fallen leaves. It looked like a place that had already surrendered. When I walked through the front door with Dale flanking me like a bodyguard, the house smelled of stale alcohol and fear. Henry was sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by scattered papers. He looked 10 years older than he had last week. His eyes were bloodshot, and he wore the same shirt he must have been wearing for days. He looked up, and the colour drained from his face. "Mom," he croaked, his voice cracking. I thought you were gone. Jessica said you went to stay with Aunt May. Jessica is halfway to Brazil by now. Henry," I said, my voice devoid of warmth. And I did not go to Aunt May's. I was recovering from the dehydration you caused when you locked me in a bathroom for 96 hours. Henry scrambled to his feet, swaying slightly. He looked at Dale, then back at me, panic rising in his chest. "Mom, listen, I can explain. It was a misunderstanding. The door got jammed. I tried to open it." "Save it for the judge," Dale interjected, his voice deep and gravelly. "We are here to inspect the assets. Under the emergency motion filed today, you are to vacate the premises immediately pending an investigation into fraud." "Vacate," Henry shrieked. "I can't leave? If I leave, Marcus will think I am running. He will kill me." "Mom, you do not understand. I owe him $200,000, I know," I said calmly, "and I know you forged my signature on the loan application." Henry grabbed his hair, pulling at the roots. He began to pace, hyperventilating. I had to. The business was under. "Jessica said we could flip the money. She said we could pay it back before you noticed, but she took it. She took the cash and left me with the debt. So your plan was to sell my house." I pressed, stepping closer. I needed him to say it. I needed it clear as day. "I didn't want to." Henry sobbed, tears streaming down his face. But the interest, it was compounding every day. I was going to sign the deed over to Marcus this afternoon. It was the only way to stop him from breaking my legs. I was going to sell it and put you in a home. A nice home. I swear I felt the weight of the phone in my pocket, the voice recorder app spinning silently, capturing every word. He had just admitted to premeditated fraud and intent to sell property he did not legally own rights to, all to cover a criminal debt. "You were going to put me in a home," I repeated, ensuring the audio picked it up clearly. "And sell the villa that I built? I had no choice." He screamed, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. "Why can't you just help me? Just sign the papers. Mum, if you love me, you will sign them." I looked at him. I looked at the man who used to hold my hand when he crossed the street. I saw nothing of that boy left. Just a desperate, selfish stranger who would burn me alive to keep himself warm. "I am helping you, Henry," I said softly. I turned around and walked toward the door. "Mom, where are you going?" he yelled, stumbling after us. "You can't leave me here. Marcus is coming." I stopped at the threshold and looked back one last time. "I suggest you call the police. Henry. They are the only ones who can protect you from Marcus Hale now." I walked out into the bright afternoon sun. As Dale closed the heavy oak door, shutting off Henry's wails, a small, barely perceptible smile touched my lips. I had the confession. I had the leverage. Now, it was time to close the trap. The legal noose tightened around Henry's neck with the precision of a hangman's knot. Dale Kerwin filed the motion for an emergency asset freeze at the county clerk's office. By noon, on Wednesday, the judge had granted a temporary injunction. The deed to the villa was now frozen. No one could sell it. No one could borrow against it. It was a dead asset, a stone tied around my son's ankles while he tried to tread water. Marcus Hale did not wait for the courts. Olivia told me she saw his black sedan parked outside the villa gates again. This time, 2 men in dark suits got out. They did not knock. They pounded on the door until the wood groaned. Henry did not answer. He was likely hiding in the dark, just as I had been, only his prison was of his own making. That evening, Henry came to Olivia's house. He looked like a ghost, his clothes rumpled, his eyes wild and darting. He stood on the porch, wringing his hands. "Olivia, please," he begged through the screen door. "I know she is in there. I just want to apologize. I want to make things right. Tell her I love her." I sat in the kitchen, sipping my tea, listening to his lies. He did not want to apologize. He wanted me to withdraw the lawsuit so he could liquidate the house and save his own skin. "She does not want to see you, Henry," Olivia said, her voice like steel. "Go home." "I can't go home," Henry shouted, his composure shattering. "They are watching the house. Mom, Mom, please. I am your son." I did not move. I did not speak. I let the silence answer him. Eventually, he left, sobbing into the night. The next 48 hours were a cascade of disasters for him. First came the termination letter. Word of the fraud investigation had reached the partners at his firm. In Silverbridge, reputation is currency, and Henry was now bankrupt. He was fired for ethical violations, stripping him of his severance package. Then came the courier. A process server found Henry at a coffee shop because he was too afraid to be at the villa. He was served with divorce papers. Jessica had filed from an undisclosed location in Florida. She cited irreconcilable differences. But we all knew she was really citing poverty. She wanted nothing to do with his debts. Finally, the summons arrived. The court date was set for the following Monday regarding the civil suit for false imprisonment and financial abuse. Dale sat with me in Olivia's living room, reviewing our strategy. "We have the bank records," he said, tapping the file. "We have the testimony of the locksmith who freed you. We have the medical report on your dehydration. It is a solid case. Martha, we can strip him of everything." "Good," I said. "There is just one thing." Dale hesitated. "If he plays the distraught son card well enough, the judge might be lenient on the asset division. He might try to claim he had your best interests at heart, that you were mentally declining." I touched the pocket of my cardigan where the small black USB drive rested. It contained the recording from the bathroom, the one where he and Jessica discussed putting me in a nursing home not for my health, but to steal my equity. I had not given it to Dale yet. I was saving it. A weapon is most effective when the enemy thinks you are unarmed. "Let him try," I said softly. "I am ready." I looked at the real estate brochures on the table. I had already picked out a listing agent, a woman from the next county who did not know the gossip. I was going to sell the villa. I was going to turn that monument of betrayal into liquid cash and vanish. But first, I had to watch my son face the consequences of his actions in a court of law. "Prepare the sale documents, Dale," I instructed. "As soon as the judge rules, I want that sign in the yard." "You are sure?" Dale asked. "I have never been more sure of anything," I replied. The mother who built that house was gone. The woman who remained was simply closing a business deal. The courtroom in Silverbridge was smaller than I remembered. smelling of floor wax and old judgments. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded calmly in my lap. Dale Kerwin sat beside me, flipping through a file as thick as a brick. Across the aisle, Henry looked like a man unraveling. He was sweating despite the chill in the room. His tie loosened, his eyes darting toward the gallery, in the back row. A man in a sharp charcoal suit sat alone. He did not look at the judge. He did not look at me. He stared directly at the back of Henry's neck. It was Marcus Hale. His presence was a silent promise of violence, and Henry knew it. Every time the door creaked, Henry flinched. "All rise," the bailiff intoned. Judge Reynolds swept in, her robes black and severe. The proceedings began with dry legal arguments, but the tension in the room was electric. Dale stood up, his voice booming. "Your Honour, we are asking for an immediate constructive trust over the property at 42 Oak Lane. Although the deed is in the defendant's name, the funds used to purchase and maintain the property came entirely from my client, Mrs. Martha Langford. Furthermore, the defendant obtained the title through undue influence and maintained it through fraud." Henry's lawyer, a court-appointed public defender who looked overwhelmed, stood up. "Objection. Mr. Langford has legal title. He has been the registered owner for 3 years. Objection noted," Judge Reynolds said, looking over her glasses. "Mr. Kerwin, proceed." Dale walked to the evidence table. "I present Exhibit A, a loan application to private lender Marcus Hale, dated 3 weeks ago. It bears the signature of Martha Langford as a guarantor." He turned to me. "Mrs. Langford, is this your signature?" "No," I said clearly. "I have never signed that document." "It is a forgery," Dale stated flatly. "And we have a forensic handwriting analysis to prove it." Henry jumped to his feet. "It wasn't me, it was Jessica Shee. She made me do it. She handled the paperwork I didn't know." "Sit down, Mr. Langford," the judge snapped. "You will speak when spoken to." "But she left me with the debt," Henry cried, his voice shrill. "She took the money and ran. I am the victim here." The judge ignored him. She looked at the evidence, then at Henry, then at Marcus Hale in the back row. She seemed to understand exactly what kind of mess this was. Based on the preliminary evidence of fraud and the clear financial contribution of the plaintiff, Judge Reynolds announced, "I am granting the motion. Mrs. Langford is granted immediate power of attorney over the property for the purpose of liquidation to recover her initial investment." "No," Henry screamed, slamming his fist on the table. "You can't do that. I need that house. If I lose the house, he will kill me." He pointed a trembling finger at the back of the room, but Marcus Hale was already gone. The seat was empty. "Order," the judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Langford, one more outburst, and I will hold you in contempt." "She is lying," Henry yelled, turning his fury on me. "She is senile. She doesn't know what she is doing. I was trying to protect her. I was going to use the money to get her the best care." I reached into my purse. My hand closed around the cold plastic of the USB drive. I handed it to Dale. "Play it," I whispered. Dale looked at me, surprised, but he took the drive and plugged it into the court's AV system. A moment later, Henry's voice filled the room, tinny but unmistakable. "I can't just do it, Jess. She is my mother. She is an obstacle. Henry, we owe Marcus too much money. If we do not get full title to this place, we are dead." I was going to put her in that home in the valley. The state-funded one. Once she is declared incompetent, we get power of attorney. Then we sell. The silence that followed was absolute. The stenographer stopped typing. The judge's face went hard as stone. Henry stood frozen, his mouth open, the blood draining from his face until he looked like a corpse. He looked at me, and for the first time, he saw the truth. He saw that the mother who had always forgiven him was dead, killed in that locked bathroom. "Mr. Langford," Judge Reynolds said, her voice dangerously quiet. "I am remanding you into custody pending a criminal investigation for elder abuse and fraud. Bailiff, take him." As the handcuffs clicked around Henry's wrists, he didn't scream. He just stared at me. I looked back, my face a mask of calm. I had won. But as they led him away, I felt no joy, just the cold, heavy weight of a necessary act. The silence in the villa was heavy, pressing against my eardrums like deep water. I walked through the front door, not as the owner, but as a stranger visiting a museum of bad memories. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors I had paid to install 10 years ago. I remembered the summer I worked double shifts at the cannery to afford that oak. I remembered the blisters on my hands and the ache in my lower back, all to give Henry a floor he could be proud to walk on. Now, it just looked like wood. I moved from room to room, carrying a small cardboard box. I did not want the silver. I did not want the crystal chandelier or the imported rugs. I went to the mantel and took the framed photo of Henry when he was 7, holding a goldfish in a plastic bag. I took my grandmother's Bible from the nightstand. I took the small ceramic cat I bought on my honeymoon. The rest, the furniture, the art, the electronics, I left exactly where they were. They were bought with money I earned, but they belonged to a life I was finished with. Olivia found me in the kitchen, staring at the granite island. She placed a hand on my shoulder. "Martha," she said softly, "you do not have to do this today. You won the court case. The judge gave you the power to sell, but you could wait. You could live here. It is your home." "It is not a home. Olivia," I replied, running my hand over the cold stone. "It is a cage with very expensive bars. But to sell it so fast, and to leave town, where will you go?" I turned to look at her. Olivia had been a good friend, perhaps the only friend I had left, but she did not understand the rot at the centre of this family. "Do you know why I really stayed in Silverbridge all these years?" I asked. "It wasn't because I loved the town. It was because I was trying to prove something to a ghost." Olivia looked confused. "A ghost?" "My husband, Frank," I said. "Everyone thought he was a charming man who just had bad luck with business. But he was a liar. 20 years ago, before he died, I found out he had secretly mortgaged my parents' farm, the land I inherited, to pay for his gambling debts. He lost it all. He looked me in the eye and told me he did it for us. He said I was too emotional to understand finance." I took a deep breath. The memory was old, but the pain was still sharp. "I spent the rest of my life working myself to the bone to build this villa, to prove that I could build something he couldn't destroy," I continued. "But when I looked at Henry in that courtroom, I didn't see my son. I saw Frank. I saw the same entitlement, the same cruelty, the same belief that a woman's hard work is just a resource for a man to plunder." "Oh, Martha," Olivia whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "I realized that I married a man who used me, And I raised a son who became him, I said, my voice steady. If I stay here, I will always be the victim. I will be the mother who forgave the unforgivable. I need to break the cycle. Olivia, I need to cut it out like a tumor. The real estate agent had left the papers on the counter. The offer from the investor was low because of the quick closing, but it was immediate cash. I picked up the pen. My hand did not shake. I signed my name at the bottom of the page in neat, cursive letters. Martha Langford. With that signature, I erased 30 years of struggle. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen lit up with a collect call notification from the county jail. It was Henry. He was likely calling to beg. He would cry. He would say he was sorry. He would promise to change. I looked at the screen for a long moment. I remembered the sound of the lock clicking shut on the bathroom door. I remembered the darkness. I pressed the button on the side of the phone and silenced the call. He will keep calling, Olivia warned. I know, I said. But I will not be answering. I picked up my cardboard box. Before I walked out, I took a small piece of stationery from my purse. I wrote a single sentence on it. I did not sign it with "Love, Mom," or even my name. I folded the paper and placed it on the kitchen island, right next to the keys to the villa. What did you write? Olivia asked. Something he needs to read when he gets out, I said. Something that might save him, if he has any soul left. I walked to the door. I did not look back at the high ceilings or the expensive curtains. I stepped out into the cool afternoon air of Silverbridge, and for the first time in 54 years, I felt entirely, terrifyingly free. The sale of the villa was finalized in less than 48 hours. I sold it to a faceless investment group from Chicago for 20% less than the market value just to ensure a quick cash closing. I did not care about the loss. The money was not the point. The point was the eviction notice that was taped to the solid oak front door the very next morning. My son, who was out on bail and clinging to the hope that he could manipulate the court into letting him stay, was given exactly 30 days to vacate the premises. Henry did not pack. He paced the empty living room, calling my old number over and over, listening to the operator tell him the line had been disconnected. He was waiting for a miracle. Instead, he got a monster. Marcus Hale did not knock this time. He walked through the unlocked front gate and found Henry sitting on the patio steps, head in his hands. I was not there to see it. But Olivia watched from her window and told me later that Henry looked small, like a child waiting for a beating. "Where is the money?" "Henry?" Marcus asked, his voice low and dangerous. I don't have it." Henry stammered, scrambling backward until his back hit the stucco wall. "My mother? She sold the house. The court froze everything. You have to give me more time. Please." Henry expected violence. He curled into a ball, shielding his head, waiting for the blow that would shatter his ribs. But the blow never came. Marcus stood over him, adjusting his cufflinks. "You are a lucky little weasel, Henry. You don't deserve the mother you have." Henry looked up, confused, tears streaming down his face. "What?" "She came to see me," Marcus said. "Yesterday. She walked into my office like she owned the place and dropped a cashier's check on my desk." Henry's mouth fell open. He scrambled to his feet, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. "She paid it. She paid the debt. Oh, thank God I knew she wouldn't let you hurt me. I knew she still loved me." Marcus laughed, a dry, humourless sound. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a plain white envelope. He flicked it at Henry. It fluttered to the ground between them. "She paid $50,000, Marcus said. "She said that covers the nuisance fee and enough of the principal to ensure I don't break your legs. The rest, you still owe me $150,000. Henry, and since you have no house, you are going to work it off. I own you now." Marcus turned and walked away, leaving Henry trembling in the driveway. My son was alive, but he was no longer free. Henry fell to his knees and tore open the envelope. His hands shook so badly he nearly ripped the paper inside. It was written in my handwriting. The script, steady and unwavering. "Henry, I sold the villa this morning. The proceeds are in an offshore account you will never touch. I went to see Mr. Hale because, despite everything, I could not bear the thought of burying you. I paid him enough to buy your life. I did not pay him enough to buy your freedom. You are young, and you have 2 hands. You will learn what it means to work for your survival, just as I did before I built the roof you tried to steal. I did not save you from ruin, only from death. Do not look for me." Henry stared at the letter. A guttural scream ripped from his throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated loss. He realized then that the safety net was gone. The bank of Mom was closed. He sobbed into the cold stone of the driveway, crying not for the loss of me, but for the loss of his easy life. 2 weeks later, the investors arrived early. They did not wait for the 30 days. They brought a locksmith. Henry was escorted off the property by the sheriff, carrying nothing but a duffel bag of clothes. As he stood on the curb, watching the new owners change the locks on the doors I had sanded and stained with my own hands, he looked across the street at Olivia's house. He hoped for a glimpse of me. He hoped for one last chance to beg, but the curtains were drawn. The house was dark. By the time the sun set over Silverbridge, the rumours had already started. The villa was empty. Henry was working a minimum wage job at a warehouse to pay Marcus Hale and Martha Langford. She had vanished into the mist, leaving behind nothing but a sold house and a son who finally understood the cost of a mother's love when it turns to ice. The international terminal at the airport was a sea of strangers, and for the first time in my life, I was happy to be just one more face in the crowd. I wore a new coat, held a new leather handbag, and in my pocket rested a passport that did not smell like the stale air of Silverbridge. I sat near the gate, watching the planes taxi on the tarmac. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was a burner phone, bought with cash 3 hours ago. Only one person had the number. "Hello, Dale?" I answered. "It is done. Martha." Dale's voice came through, clear and professional. "The wire transfer cleared 10 minutes ago. Every cent from the sale is in the account in the Caymans. Untraceable." "And Henry?" I asked. It was a reflex. "Even after you cut off a limb, you still feel the phantom pain." "He is alive," Dale said, choosing his words carefully. "He is staying at a cheap motel on the edge of town. He is working double shifts at the warehouse to keep Marcus Hale satisfied. He looks like a ghost. Martha, he is broken." I looked out at the grey sky. Broken is better than dead. He will learn to rebuild. I did. "I also sent the courier," Dale added softly. "He received the package this morning." I closed my eyes. That package was not money. It was a box of documents I had kept hidden for years. It contained copies of checks I had written to cover his gambling debts when he was 20. It had the emails I sent to his previous bosses begging them not to press charges for theft. It was the paper trail of a mother who had spent a decade quietly saving her son from himself, only to be locked in a bathroom for her trouble. "Did he say anything?" I asked. "No," Dale replied. "He just cried. I think he finally realizes that you were never the enemy. He needed to see it in black and white," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I hope he understands that I did not leave because I wanted revenge. I left because he stopped seeing me as his mother. To him, I was just an ATM that breathed." "Safe travels, Martha," Dale said. "Don't look back. Goodbye." "Dale?" I ended the call. I went to the contacts list. There was only one number saved there under Henry. I pressed delete. The name vanished, leaving the screen blank. The flight attendant announced the final boarding call for my flight. I stood up, smoothing the front of my coat. I walked toward the jet bridge, leaving the weight of 54 years on the terminal floor. Back in Silverbridge, I knew exactly what was happening at that very moment. The new owners of the villa were doing a deep clean. I imagined the cleaning crew scrubbing the master bathroom. One of them would reach under the marble vanity, feeling for dust, and their fingers would brush against cold plastic. They would pull out the small voice recorder I had taped there weeks ago. They would press play. They would hear Henry's voice plotting to lock me away. They would hear the cruelty. They would hear the truth. And when that recording hit the local news, as I knew it would, the town would finally understand why a mother would sell her son's home out from under him. I left it there not to destroy him further, but to make sure the truth survived, even if I did not stay to tell it. I handed my boarding pass to the attendant. She smiled. "Heading home, ma'am?" "No," I said, stepping onto the plane. "I am heading away from it." The cabin door closed, sealing me inside. The engines roared to life, a sound like a giant inhaling before a scream. As the wheels lifted off the ground, watching the ground shrink away until the villa, the town, and my son were nothing but invisible specks. I finally let out the breath I had been holding for 4 days. No one knows which country Martha is in, only that she never came back. Thank you so much for listening to this story. That was quite a ride, wasn't it? I'm really curious to know where you folks are tuning in from. Drop a comment down below with your city or country. And let me know what you would have done if you were in Martha's shoes. Would you have forgiven Henry? Or did he get exactly what he deserved? If you enjoyed this story, please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button for Grandma's Family Diary. Smash that like button and give the video a hype so we can share this drama with more people. See you in the next story.